It's almost safe to say today internet is priority for each and everyone and is making a shitload of money.
In terms of media users, you have about 24 million versus the population. 54% of those are active media users. And active media users, you're looking at all sorts of media, shop and buy. And now you're looking at a market scene where everything is now in the palm of your hand.
Every conference you go into, people are speaking of data, people are speaking of software, AI, different approaches that are shaping marketing and branding today.
If there's breaking news, you don't have to wait for the newspaper to come out. You just have to go on social media or it's on WhatsApp. It will find you anywhere you are. Digital is anything that you can access on your phone or your laptop. We now have digital screens that we use for billboards as a new era of advertising. You see a growth in reach by over 40%. That's huge. You have a 19% penetration, and this is just Uganda. So you can imagine what's happening outside Uganda. Right now, when you go to schools, they are now giving homework on their tablets.
I think COVID is what started the misinformation. At that time, Trump had come up with a catchphrase of fake news, which also accelerated the whole thing. We found that a lot of companies pre-pandemic that didn't take social media seriously took it more seriously now.
We know the content that's put out online can be easily exploited because anyone now is a journalist when it comes to what you're putting out.
My hashtag for my customer would be, all right, you are king, because that's all they have told us. That's what they demonstrate every day, that they rule. It doesn't matter whether they're correct or not. Our one job is just to listen and give them what it is they want. Lose them to the next guy.
Warm welcome to our monthly webinar series. Today's webinar topic is focusing on strategy changes for post-pandemic consumers. As we know, COVID, in a cynical way or in a great way, brought us to utilize other ways of working or being agile. But I'm happy to listen to what our experts are going to share with us today and learn more. I'm Agi Patricia Turomwe, and I'm the co-founder at Agile Media Africa. It's definitely our pleasure that we host these monthly webinar series that are always insightful. I hope that we can understand the different consumer behavior, how those have transformed, especially in the wake of COVID-19, and what it means for brands to navigate around this landscape. It has been a couple of years since COVID, but some of the brands are still lost. I hope that if people listen, they can pick some information that will help them communicate within their brands. We will explore the significant shifts in the customer preferences and the behavior that has emerged and discuss how brands have adopted to different strategies to keep them to speed. We'll also get into the importance of agility, innovation, data. Every conference you go into, people are speaking of data, people are speaking of software, tools, AI, different approaches that are shaping marketing and branding today. Let's dive into more of the customer engagement. What are those customers like and what are they doing? We have a lineup of some fantastic speakers. We have Joseph Byaruhanga, who is the brand and marketing manager at Rock Teleco. Lorraine at Tukahirwa is the head of marketing and communications at Vision Group, one of the biggest media houses in Uganda. Then Doreen Nyiramugisha, the head of marketing and communications at Housing Finance Bank. Then also Miss Betty Kakyo, who is part of the team at Agile Media Africa, the marketing manager. Like I mentioned earlier, reshaped how customers interacting with brands, purchasing their products both online and offline. We really hope that this conversation brings some clarity and drives the point home as we navigate this era, which is not pretty new. We've been at it for so many years. I hope we can get to learn more about it. Agile Media wasn't born before COVID, so we are happy to say we were born after the pandemic era, and we are happy to listen to you experts, to the brands that have done it, that were there before COVID and after COVID. Joseph, I'm thrilled to have you as the first speaker. Please share with us your insights about the digital shift, and let's keep this conversation going.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on a Friday with you guys. I think I'm 5 months in at Rock Telecom. It's a very interesting place. First off, taking a bit of background, I did marketing from Ngozi, lucky enough, I managed to get a job immediately. I had no idea or clue about advertising, like as a whole. But I started as a media plan and buyer. I did my 5 years, went to be player, bride and groom. I got into events. Then I went to next media just to ensure my digital skills upright. Because I never wanted to just be a traditional kind of marketer. I wanted to be a 360. That gave me perspective. Now I'm on the client side. I'm no longer on the media side. That's just my story. Straight into it. Looking at for Rock Telecom, because of I did a bit of research. I think it was the boom for Rock Telecom. They actually got more clients. They were already prepared. It's arguably the first ISP, that's an internet service provider, to provide fiber. For Rock Telecom, it's fully Ugandan owned. We're making 18 years this month. Being blessed and sharing with you the things that actually came to pass during COVID, there was emphasis on demand surge post-pandemic. Looking at trends on how people consume social media. Before we're selling bundles, like you'd load and then your bundle runs out. We used to give you weekend packages for free. But you realize nowadays someone is watching TV, maybe they're streaming Netflix, they're still WhatsApping, they're still on TikTok. We had to actually go unlimited. That's how the package is also developed. We had to respond to clients' demands and ensure that we're living the times that our generation is living. There was also a trend of online learning that was very key. The kids could keep busy. They had easy access to the internet. So we had to ensure how best we could be relevant. Looking at also the pocket share, we had to ensure that we are affordable, but again, delivering quality service. We had virtual events which we supported, like the Blankets Online. Looking at the infrastructure, we had to expand because we were limited way back then regarding the fiber. We had to extend because there was so many other people appreciating it a lot more. And also our competition, highlighting the investment structure because everybody needed internet. It's almost safe to say today, internet is priority for each and everyone. You can always learn new and different things vis-a-vis what you have. So we really had to extend our investment. And this has also led us to where we are today because we are countrywide. Because of our efforts and because it's Ugandan owned, many investors are looking at us and think that we are maybe the best ISP available. They can be easily flexible. So recently actually got a contract with USAID and we managed to get 12 months countrywide. So building infrastructure, this is just because of COVID, because we are really doing our best to close the gap, the digital divide, when it comes to ensuring that the low-end customer can easily get internet connectivity. So we have had partnerships with like Hello Hub, a couple of partners in there. But yeah, highlighting the investment, this has actually pushed us further and we are doing well. Also, because of the different shifts of consumer behavior, we had to introduce new products. Like I highlighted before, it was bundles, then it moved to unlimited. But again, we have a couple of products. So there's one that many campuses are particular with. It's the rock spot, just like a spot. Where that spot is where the internet connectivity is. But again, it's also countrywide. So there are particular spots that we look out for, like malls, like hostels. In a community, it could be maybe a town where people actually converge. So there are rock spots and you can easily access internet for as low as 1,200 shillings for 24 hours. Just imagine that you can download all the movies, you update all your applications, you can kill a kit, safe to say you can do each and everything for 24 hours for only 1,200 shillings. So that for us was a very big plus. And we are partnered with so many communities and it's doing wonders because we have a lot more testimonies that people have actually built. Safe to say, like in refugee camps, there's this guy who was, I think, from Southern Sudan, from Congo. He learned how to take pictures through his phone. He saved so much money. He used to run to town and then he gets back to the refugee camp. But because of the internet in town was actually helping him do a lot more. Today, he's getting married. He has a fully fledged business. He's good with graphics design just through the internet. You can just imagine that. And he's making a shitload of money. So those are some of the things that we could easily highlight. Then there's fiber to the home, that's FTTH. So there's fiber and then there's wireless. So fiber is the one that is seamless. Wireless, when there are a bit of issues, the speeds are not as good here. So that's another product. Then we have enterprise. Enterprises are for big organizations or institutions. So we avail a plethora of services beyond that. And then they also manage services. SMS, not like you're getting married today. We sell packages to other sub sellers. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's
Then
what you are up to. I want to know if the pandemic gave you different insights or stats and data as compared to before or after.
yeah, we already have an internal system. So for leads and for every client that we have, every client has an account, and we take very, very candid looks at how their performance is. So in the event that they're maxing out their speeds, we ensure that we reach out to you and see how best we can elevate you. And also looking at people losing accounts like on Twitter and things like that, we also introduced a product called Rock Protect that ensures cybersecurity space. So it ensures that you're protected through and through. So for the mothers and the fathers who are really scared of their kids going to different platforms for adult content, you can block that. Yeah, it has really helped us. And day by day, we keep learning all these trends and numbers, and we do whatever it takes to give our clients.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for that. Lorraine, are you ready to share with us some of the digital transformation in media consumption?
Okay, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Lorraine Tukahirwa, and I'm the head of marketing at Vision Group. Very excited to be here. I thought I'll just give a highlight of where Vision Group has come from and what we stand for. 38 years ago, we started as one newspaper, and that was just known for New Vision. But then we got to a point where we kept on interacting with audiences, and then you realize you need to diversify and you need to grow. So that's where we came to now having over 20 brands under one roof. These brands cater to a lot of needs and wants when it comes to media, news, entertainment. That's why Vision Group is known as the leading multimedia company in Uganda. Out of 45 million, we have 33 million, which is 73% of the audiences that are subscribing to a phone. Whether it's a feature phone, a basic phone, or a smartphone, you have about 33 million people that own one. Then in terms of internet subscribers, you have 25 million. That's quite a big number. This data was collected last year, so it shows there is a lot of potential when it comes to media consumption, online and offline as well. In terms of media users, you have about 24 million versus the population. 54% of those are active media users. And active media users, you're looking at all sorts of media, if it's TV, radio, print, or social media. I thought I'll just share that to give us an idea into what I'm about to present. So I was asked to talk about the post-pandemic media and how the post-pandemic has affected media. And of course, I'll be putting it in two contexts when it comes to Vision Group. When you look at 4 years ago, the pandemic hit, and it changed a lot when it comes to media consumption and the behavior in terms of the consumers that we work with. We saw a big shift from offline media to online media. Your typical person that used to wait to buy their newspaper, I'll give an example, my dad and my mom, that's the kind of market that we grew up in. You had your parents wake up in the morning and either the paper would be delivered to the doorstep or they would walk to the nearest shop and buy. And now you're looking at a market scene where everything is now in the palm of your hand. If there's breaking news, you don't have to wait for the newspaper to come out. You just have to go on social media or it's on WhatsApp. It will find you anywhere you are. That's how we are now trying to navigate the current scene that we are working with. Like I'd mentioned, you'd find a lot of people relying heavily on digital platforms. I always want to emphasize that when you're talking about digital, it's not just social media. Digital is anything that you can access on your phone or your laptop. We now have digital screens that we use for billboards as a new era of advertising. There's a heavy reliance on digital. Now, the challenge for us as media is how do we remain relevant with the changing needs? How do you ensure that every day, while you put out the content, you need to keep in mind that people are actually accessing that content, but they're appreciating the content that you put out, because that is what will always bring them back to you. One of the key topics I had to talk about was acceleration of digital transformation in media. That brings us to understanding the new consumer behavior. We've already acknowledged that the pandemic changed a lot of that. How do we keep up, at the end of the day, meet our objectives and our goals as a media company. The fact that there's been a shift towards digital media, we now get to understand that people now prefer consuming their content online. As a way of diversifying and growing, Vision Group now had to leverage on the digital platforms that we have. We currently have a mobile app, which is called Vibe. We have over 11 million downloads at the moment. So we use the online app, we use the website, we use our social media platforms to continue engaging and just keeping our brand in the faces of our audiences. Now that the growing population is also growing on social media and digital, we are now able to create content that has the audience spend more time on those platforms. When you look at our website, New Vision, it's among the top 5 most visited websites in Uganda. You always have to study your audiences every day. If most of your audiences are shifting towards entertainment, when you go to the website, you realize it's not just news we're selling. We have a lot of engaging content. We put out puzzles, we put out entertainment, we put stories. We cater to the different needs of the audiences that we have. Key to note is on-demand and short content. Attention span, that's for everyone. Now, like today, I have a very long presentation, but I know I have only 10 minutes, so I have to make sure it's short and brief, driving it straight to the point. On-demand content, we have to make sure we put out on-demand content. What we normally do is, as Vision Group, we've been able to create a database where we now highlight the audiences we work with and what kind of content they want. We're able to create content that suits you directly. If it's Lorraine that's into fashion, when Lorraine comes to the website, it's the content that she'll see first. Because that's on demand for her, we're able to cater to that. That's what brings me down to personalization of content. I believe, again, the fact that I'm always on my phone, I'm always on my laptop. If I'm driving and I'm in traffic, I'm able to just skip through and see what's the breaking highlight, what's the breaking news that can help us meet the target. This is just a summary of how social media has really changed as a result of the pandemic. For Facebook, there's been a big growth in terms of usage of the platform. You see a growth in reach by over 40%. That's huge. You have a 19% penetration, and this is just Uganda. So you can imagine what's happening outside Uganda. The same thing applies to Instagram. That has 59%. For you that are on LinkedIn, you realize now a lot of engagement is happening on LinkedIn, which wasn't the case before, because we were all locked up in the house, and that was our way of communicating and keeping in touch. So again, takes us back to what our objectives are as Vision Group and how do we keep up with the digital transformation. How has the pandemic fast-tracked digital media? You're looking at growth in video consumption. I was seated in a meeting one time and I was next to this old man who I believe was around 62, and we had a breakout session. And the first thing he did was get to the phone and go straight to TikTok. And he was watching the videos and he was laughing and he was commenting. And someone would think he's old. Yeah, he is old, but that's where most of the audiences are now going. Growth in online video consumption has helped us now look into videos as a way of putting out content and news, which we believe is very engaging. Digital subscribers, as a result of the pandemic, we had a big growth when it came to our online subscribers, because we got to a point where a few people were actually buying the hard paper. Most of them were now subscribing to the e-paper, who were so scared of touching anything because you don't want to get contaminated. You knew at least with your phone, it's safe. You don't have to worry about all that. Social media is a news source, growing. 10 years from now, I keep saying it at the office, 10 years from now, this newspaper is not going to be anymore. All their gadgets for everything. Right now, when you go to schools, they are now giving homework on their tablets. They no longer carry homework home in papers. Everything is now digitalized. You can imagine what's going to happen 10 years from now. The main thing at the back of our mind was the changing scene in the market, the transformation. How do we maintain our position as a trusted source of content?
I'm going to bring you back in during question time. We'll have to give enough time for the next speaker. But thank you so much. You also share quite valid points that Joseph shared. There's quite intertwined themes on finding where the consumers are, new products, partnerships, digital, on demand. That's quite brilliant to help us understand what also the media, from your perspective, are witnessing from what the consumer trends are. As Doreen comes in for her 10 minutes, Joseph, there's a question if people need VPN to access social media. There's also how does government interference affect your service? And then CK was also saying that you need a VPN to access your socials, in particular Facebook. Then how do you ensure you do not lose the benefits of newspapers?
I would gladly just run you through a couple of things that we have done to improve our customer experience or customer interactions over time by focusing on data post-COVID. So this is the data that we have. Every time you open an account, you share everything about you, personal information, where we can find you, where we can engage you long term, your birth date, etc. That's the data that we're talking about, which, by the way, we protect quite a bit as the Data Protection Act. What the data has been for us is a gold mine, like every other institution. We're looking at consumer behavior analysis. Because we know where you are, what you're doing.
Joseph, would you please answer the two questions that were posed at you?
Just about regulation by the government, but it's through UCC. We're regulated by UCC, so they give us bylaws of which we're supposed to follow and abide to and walk through and ensure that we also emulate their values, especially to the public. VPN is a product, they have presence in different areas. So maybe like StarTimes, maybe Zuku and things like that. VPN is a product on its own that we sell. We can't just give it out for free, but we can avail that. For entities like enterprise, where you're paying dedicated internet in dollars, step to step, that can be availed to you as a value add. For Facebook, we all know, definitely the government needs money from Facebook. They are putting heavy, stringent rules and regulations for them. So for us marketers, it affects us quite a lot.
Yeah.
Us marketers affect us quite a lot because even if you use VPN, if I'm trying to target you, you as you in Uganda, you could be in Netherlands in Uganda. So
how are other providers doing it?
For the most part, you can realize that if you're actually getting a solid VPN for most applications, they charge you. There's a fee attached to it. They have to protect you in terms of your data and everything. Some people can easily access your data. But there are others that are free that you can go for, but you're also in the red zone because someone can easily get into your data. They can easily get into your passwords and things.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very careful when you're downloading a VPN.
Thank you so much for those insights, Joseph. Loretta, you had a question. Please address it as we hopefully think that Doreen comes back and tells us how they've managed to engage their customers at the bank and also build trust, especially after COVID when people didn't have money and leverage that data that they got.
I think I'll answer Loretta's question. Loretta was asking, how do you ensure you do not lose the benefits of newspapers like reading or in-person gathering communities? As Vision Group, what we've done is we've been able to create strategies that creates a balance. There are those people that will prefer how you have a hybrid event. There are those that are more comfortable accessing the events or initiatives online. Then there are those ones that prefer physical. What we've done is we've created a balance where if you're looking at physical interaction, those properties are there. If you're looking at gatherings, you're looking at reading your paper, that has been catered to. At the same time, we're still able to cater to those that prefer the hybrid or the online and virtual initiatives and engagements. Day to day, we always do feedback sessions where we get to understand what are their preferences and what can we do better and what needs to be changed.
Cleopatra says, with the online platform, there are lax regulations that lead to unaccountable reporting and potential exploitation of sensitive issues. What measures does New Vision have in place to curb this down, especially for the younger viewership? Please think about that, Lorraine, as I bring in Betty to summarize this conversation. She'll be wrapping up the speaker sessions and sharing observations on how brands are actually shifting in both ways, internally and externally, using those communication strategies to respond to pandemics like the most recent one, which was COVID. Betty?
Hi, everyone. I'll just look at the key takeaways from the speakers so far. I'll start with Lorraine. I think your focus on how the pandemic permanently altered media consumption and accelerated digital transformation in the industry, specifically in terms of short form, that a lot of companies are going towards short form content or short video content. However, there's a lot of concern, especially in the media around journalists, about how media companies can balance this demand for short form content and still maintain the depth and quality of traditional media. I think even when you look at what's happening outside of Uganda, there's a lot of concern now that what has happened post-pandemic has actually affected journalism as a whole. There's a lot of misinformation, and not just misinformation. A lot of media companies, obviously for the right reasons, shifted to shorter form content, but that has caused more harm than good, specifically right now with the need for actual factual content, especially around elections. At that time, Trump had come up with a catchphrase of fake news, which also accelerated the whole thing. Another factor to look into is the fact that you're looking at data to inform how users are consuming content is really good. We had Razaya Athman, who was also talking about how Vision Group has adapted podcasting as also a way of accelerating news, especially to people outside of Uganda. So that's also a plus for Vision Group in terms of adapting post-pandemic. In terms of what Joseph was talking about, I think the key marketing strategies I found that Rock Telecom did really well was custom community-centric product development. So basically just developing products tailored specific user groups based on the need at that time. For example, the Rockspot, the one that's targeted to university students, that's very great for a lot of marketers to learn about the community-centric product development. A lot of bigger brands that give internet struggled at that time. I think Rock Telecom did a really good job in just filling that void and filling that gap that was in the market. Another marketing strategy that I really picked up was the customer retention through strategies like affordability. That's again on the niche targeting. So finding the groups that need the product and also having the right pricing strategy for them. In terms of how our companies are adapting, their Agile Media was formed 2022 post-pandemic. One of the main strategies that Agile Media used as a company that entered the market post-pandemic was just the focus on obviously remote work, but also the focus on people and planet-centric content strategy. There was a lot of focus on personalized content, like content that people are actually interested in. As the agency that's working remotely, we incorporated a lot of flexible working strategies, such as virtual tools, but our external communications focus mostly on a move to more people and planet-centric content that focused on delivering value. We focused on creating campaigns that resonate with the audience's emotions. For example, campaigns that focus mainly on climate, sports, and a lot of CSR campaigns. Basically, these campaigns aim was to resonate with the audience's emotions, to connect with consumers. We found that post-pandemic, a lot of people were just focused on people and planet, so we focused on that strategy. I think post-pandemic, there were a few law firms that were on social media. Agencies leveraged on that. We found that a lot of companies pre-pandemic that didn't take social media seriously took it more seriously now. In terms of our CSR strategies, we're focused mainly on CSR that actually helps young people get digital skills. We have a podcast masterclass where we are training young people and getting a lot of digital skills. Digital skills are mainly fundamentals like content strategy, technical know-hows in terms of recording, editing, just to get a lot of young people who are left behind into the system post-pandemic. We're also focusing to stay responsive to tech solutions. We're also incorporating a lot of AI and automation into our work through the various social media tools and various communications tools we're using now.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you guys for being very patient with me. I will get straight into the question. The question really is about how we have leveraged data post COVID to rather shape effective marketing campaigns and improve customer interaction. Initially, like most of the speakers I was able to tap, I broke down the pre-COVID era where it was just good to have. If you have data, you can use it. If you have digital footprint, well and good. But we got to a point where all we had to work with was digital footprint. I speak on Housing Finance Bank. When we got to a space where data is all we had to work with, it was very important to take note of customer behavior analysis, where we can tell when we spike up with certain products or certain needs or certain trends. For instance, around the 15th of every month, we have people paying their taxes. We have people spending more as soon as they get their salary. We could tell every time you're at the ATM, this data we use and we can compare. So we would tell when to do what. In other words, what messaging do we put out at whatever season based on your consumer or rather customer behavior patterns. Because of that, we were able to focus more on data cleanup. And I know most of the digital heavy organizations like telcos, organizations, banks will tell you for free that it eases the way you reach out. Instead of spending, let's say, $100,000 on a small media campaign for 2 months, you'd rather focus on buying a tool or subscribing to an email marketing tool that you know is going to get you somewhere. Both business and products became more popular during COVID and post-COVID because it is their work analyzing the patterns that helped us group people so that we can tell directly what the customer needs are. I will also just focus on what we call the digital engagement channels or the transaction channels that were beefed up more post-COVID. I know you all know what agent banking is and how it was a good one. Top 3 banks had it to widen their network. But with post-COVID and what we know was necessary for us to do, we all started focusing on how to diversify or expand our network because one, we are infecting each other. So the less people in a room, the better. We registered more agents. I think most banks registered over 200% increments in their agent network just to be able to reach more people. And because we all now naturally had to use these platforms while we're caged up in isolation, when we're locked down in quarantine and all those things, we only had these spaces, and what they gave us was gold. We already talked about analysis of data, but it also gives you a background to do predictive analytics. That means that based on the patterns that you have read, where are the trends going? I will not delve so much because I'm on a group with a bunch of very brilliant people, but I also just finalize with optimization of the communication channels where we had more people move from walking into the banking halls. I'll focus on Housing Finance Bank where we moved most of our transactions off the banking halls to online by over 60% during the post-COVID era.
That was brilliant. I think we will all agree that if someone has listened into this webinar, they now know what the customer today deserves from how every brand seems to be very centric on what the needs and the touch points of these consumers are. Doreen, you've also mentioned how you're very centric in the way that you're reaching the consumers where they are and also using the patterns and the different data you're receiving to make better decisions to deliver that experience. So that is great. Betty rightly put it that we are also doing a lot of work in that regard just to make sure that we fit within this new era with remote work, using a lot of tools, training in these spaces, for example, the digital trainings that will equip other people to deliver better experiences to their customers. I remember we had questions for Lorraine.
I'll be responding to Cleopatra. Cleopatra's question was, with the online platform, there are lax regulations that can lead to unaccountable reporting and potential exploitation of sensitive issues. What measures does Vision Group have in place to curb this down, especially for the younger viewership? What we've done is we've handled this internally and externally. Internally, we're looking at the journalists that put out the content, and we've been able to emphasize clear editorial standards that highlight what you're meant to put out, what you can cover and what you can't cover. We're very strict on fact checking the stories that come out. Then we've also done training sessions for the journalists as well. We normally do what we call content warning. That's done for basically stories that are put out online mostly, because we know the content that's put out online can be easily exploited because anyone now is a journalist. We normally do content warnings and ethical trainings as well, internally and externally. So that's something we've faced a number of times, but we've been able to curb it.
Thank you so much, dear participants, everybody who has made time for this webinar this evening. I would like for the speakers, our dear experts, to give us one word. If you were to summarize the customer today, what would be that hashtag? And probably if you have any parting words before we call off the webinar. We'll start with you, Lorraine.
For me, it would be hashtag ever changing.
Wonderful.
I might always say this, never be offline.
Wonderful. Doreen?
All right. My hashtag for my customer would be, all right, you are king. Because that's all they have told us. That's what they demonstrate every day, that they rule. It doesn't matter. Our one job is just to listen and give them what it is they want. Otherwise, we lose them to the next guy.
Loretta says she had a question for Agile. What was the question? I'm interested in taking my podcast to the next level. Does Agile take on individual podcasts? What's the support like?
For Loretta, I shared our email where you can get in touch with us. My one word is convenience seeking.
Thank you so much, people. I really want to respect your time. It goes a long way for leaders like you to share your insights to people who listen in to such content. I really commend you. And I hope if people are passionate, innovative about communications, then they can use the insights they got in this webinar today to rethink the strategies in responding to the ever-evolving landscape of the consumer. So thank you so much, guests and experts. We'll see you on the next webinar.